questions to the chat box, as you can see. And during the week, for those who are going to listen to this recording later, you can send your questions to the info@ioned.org.uk, or maybe possibly you can text the phone number or WhatsApp the IONAID to their numbers. I think it will not be suitable to send to individuals as private messages. Try to send it into the chat box here, or send it into the email, and from there, inshallah, me or one of my colleagues, inshallah, in one of these weeks, we will answer your questions, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, already we received 4 questions or 5 questions. So I start with the first one. The first question, I'm not sure if the questioner is here or not, but first question was received from brother Asif Khan, and he is asking about Salatul Eid, whether what's going to happen to Salatul Eid. Can I pray Salatul Eid with my family in the house? If I pray it in the house, what shall I read? What shall I do? And so really the question came out due to the situation, as you know, the situation of the lockdown and that we are in. So we pray first that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away and remove away this calamity, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clear it out, so we will be able, inshallah, by possibly maybe the last 10 days of Ramadan, we can pray back into our masajid. If not, then to answer this question, I think you should know the ruling of praying Salatul Eid itself. Salatul Eid, the scholars that differ in the ruling of Salatul Eid. So we have in the Hanafi school, the scholars, they're saying it is wajiba, it's an obligation upon every single person, and it will be a sin if the person did not go out and pray Salatul Eid with the Jama'ah. And their view is based on the hadith of Atiyya radiallahu anha, which was narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. And she mentioned that we were ordered by the Prophet ﷺ to go all out for Salatul Eid. And she mentioned all types of women, al-awatiq, wal-huyyad, wadawat al-khudur, meaning the younger ones, the older ones, even those ladies who are they are on the menses, receiving their period, they should go out as well for Salat al-Eid. And Rasulullah mentioned the hadith, Amma al-Huyyad, as for those Huyyad, فَيَعْتَزِلْنَا al-Musalla, means they sit on the side, they listen to our khutbah and our speech, and they be in the gathering of the Muslims. So this command, they made the Hanafi school, and they said it's an obligation upon all the Muslims, males and females, to attend Salat al-Eid. And it will be sinful the person who did not attend Salat al-Eid. However, we have the Hanabila. They said the Salatul Eid is, I'm going through that because just to clarify, to make it clear that what we should do later on if the situation remains as it is. The Hanabila mentioned that Salatul Eid is Fard Kifaya. Fard Kifaya means that if one of the Muslims performs Salatul Eid, which is the case that you will find all the time, there will be a number of Muslims who perform Salatul Eid, it will not be an obligation or a wajib upon the rest. So if we have 5 people praying Salatul Eid, then that is, they fulfill the obligation. The rest, they don't have to do it. But if they did, then will be good. Of course, they recommend, all the madhahib, all the scholars, all the jurists, they recommend for the Muslims to attend Salatul Eid, of course. It's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. It is one of the sha'air, one of the signs of Islam, and especially at the end of Ramadan, and also in Hajj as well, in the 10th of Dhul Hijjah as well. So Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Okay, the majority of the scholars, we have the Shafi'iyya, we have the Malikiyya, and we have also from the scholars from the Al-Zahiriyya madhab. They said Salatul Eid, it is not wajib nor is fard kifaya. Salatul Eid is only sunnah muakkada. So sunnah or sunnah muakkada upon the Muslims. And with regards to the hadith of Atiyah, which is narrated in Bukhari and Muslim, they said that is a recommendation, that is encouragement from Rasulullah sallam for everyone to attend it. However, the salah, it's not wajib upon those people. That Sahabi who came from Najd, the Imam ibn Thalaba, as it was mentioned in some narration, that he came and asked Rasulullah, what are the obligations upon me? And he said, yeah, you pray 5 daily salah. He said, you give zakah. And then he said, you fast the month of Ramadan. And he said, do I have anything else other than this? He said, no, that's all. He said, aflaha. He said, wallahi, I will, by Allah, I will not increase and I will not decrease from these obligations. And he left and he went away. And from that, the scholars saying that if it was a wajib, then the Prophet will, he will not. It's not allowed upon the Prophet to delay the explanation of the obligations to the Muslims. So Rasulullah should have explained to this person that you have Salatul Eid as well. You have to attend it, and it's wajibah and so on. But Rasulullah did not do that, and so that's one also of their evidence, as well as the explanation of the Hadith Mu'atiyah. It was that command is command of guidance and for recommendation, not for an obligation. So based on that, if Salatul Eid, and in my belief and my fatwa, what I believe in is Salatul Eid is a sunnah muakkada, it's not wajib, and it's not fard upon the people. So if the person decide, I mean, the situation that we're going to face, inshallah, in the end of this month, if we cannot, if we are not allowed to go out and perform our Salatul Eid as we normally do, in this case, in my opinion, in the same way as I said in Salatul Jumu'ah, so it is required by the community to have someone to give a speech of Salatul Eid, and will be good that to have all the community joining in the one link and to watch Salatul Eid, the khutbah of the Eid from the Imam. However, the Salah, it's not required, but you listen to the speech. As you know, the Salatul Eid, the Salah comes first, is unlike Salatul Jumu'ah. Salah comes first and then the speech. The Salah, one of the obligations, one of the conditions to validate the Salah, whatever the Salah that you pray it in Jama'ah, you have to have it in Jama'ah. The Jama'ah means that there is connection and they're close to each other. And that condition mentioned by all the scholars, including the Malikiyah, they mention also that the connection has to be there, but they are a bit lenient with that, to say they allowed the connection to be a little bit with distance. So with that, but anyway, we have a condition here that the Jama'ah has to be together, and we cannot do that. And adding to that, the Salatul Eid, it's not an obligation, it's a sunnah. So therefore, no need, as the questioner was maybe suggesting, that we can pray from home and the Imam lead the Salah, and we all after that can listen to the speech. So no Salah, but speech can be said by the Imam, and we will that can be enjoyed, can be learned from the speech. And then after that, the community, I'm sure they can contact each other even through the Zoom itself while we are in front of the camera. Everyone will say the mu'ayada, and the takbir will be there as well. So in the same in the same way that we normally do, so the takbirat and the ghusl, and wearing the nice clothes, and wearing perfume, and all of that should be fulfilled. The sunan and the mustahabbat, the recommendation, the actions on the Eid day, including the ghusl, wearing nice clothes, clean clothes, wearing tib for the males, and all of that, eating in the morning, the first thing that you do, you eat to show that's not really a fasting day. So all that will be fulfilled, inshallah. However, the salah will not be there. I know that we maybe talking a little bit earlier about this because I'm answering the question and it will come. The question already, we received the questions before and now the question came through. So we said, let's answer this question. And now because our community will be starting questioning if the situation continue. And this is my opinion. Um, in the same way as we said about Salat al-Jum'ah, if we have a masjid in our community, we don't have a masjid, we have a musalla, which is the Northwood musalla. If we have a masjid, then possibly will be recommended for the imam, same as we said with Salat al-Jum'ah, possibly will be permissible for the imam, for a member of the committees, the trustees, 4 or 5 people, or the caretaker, whoever in there, they will be with distance and the imam, and that will be good that it will be recorded or will be really live, will be broadcasted to the community and listen to the speech, and from there will be at least the masjid or the place will be the Muslim that perform the Salatul Eid. And if it was based on the view of the Hanabila Fard Kifaya, so we have a number of people who performed it, and it will be, we don't have to do that, but based on the Imam Abu Hanifa means that everyone has to do that. But as you know, in the madhab and any other madhab, al-wajibat, the obligations, tasqut ma'a the impossibility of performing it. So meaning here, if there's an obligation upon a person and there is a situation comes up and makes that person unable to perform that wajib. So لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. So we are not able to perform that. So then there is no wujub upon us, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of our situation. This is my answer to the first question. Wallahu a'lam. I hope that I made it clear to Brother Asim. The second question that we received was from, okay, was from Dr. Dr. Andalib. She was asking if a woman is on menses, can she read Quran, dua, etc.? Means maybe possibly adhkar as well, from her phone in Arabic. Okay. Well, here, I mean, we know the month of Ramadan, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the month of Ramadan is the month of Quran. And we all recommended in the Quran, in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, whether a Sunnah Qawliya speech or a statement for Prophet ﷺ or an action for Prophet ﷺ, the recommendation is there to read Quran as much as you can. And this recommendation was for males and for females, for all the Muslims. However, as we know that the females, when in the situation of the menses, they are not tahir, and also in the janaba for any other person who is in the state of janaba when the person is required to have ghusl. However, also we include here the person who is in the hadath asghar when a person is required to have wudu. And the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, no one should touch it except the mutahharun. From here, the scholars, the majority of the scholars, the madhahib, the 4 schools, they agreed that amongst the schools themselves, that touching the mushaf by al-ha'id and al-junub is not allowed, la yajuz. So he was talking about touching, directing with your hand, limbs, means direct limbs with the hands, goes direct into holding the mushaf as I'm holding the mushaf now, like this. So you're holding directly like this. The majority of our scholars, the jurists from the madhahib, they're saying it's not allowed. And however, now the other situation, which is reading the Quran without touching the mushaf. You read the Quran without touching the mushaf. This also a number of scholars, including the Hanafi school, as the madhab, it is not allowed for the person to read the Quran, reading without touching, reading the Quran without tahara. So tahara is required. And here we're talking about al-ha'id, the lady who is having on her menses. She's not allowed to read the Quran while she is on this situation. Reading Quran means from memory, from memory. Okay. However, this view was disagreed by a number of scholars, and it is the narration from the Hanabila, the madhab of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and one of the saying of Imam Shafi'i, and also it is the madhab of the Malikiyah that it is allowed for the lady or for the lady, because talking about menses, or the person who's in janaba, to read the Quran by hifz, by just from memory. So now I'm reading Quran without touching the mushaf. I read the Quran without touching mushaf. So mushaf is there. Imagine a person is not on tahara, of a lady, she is on her menses. This is the mas'ala here. After the first mas'ala, which is the all agreed, the madhahib, that the touching the mushaf is not allowed for that ayah. And but to read the Quran from memory, as we said, there's an ikhtilaf, the scholars differ, and the Hanafi school, one of the views of Imam Shafi'i, a narration from Madhab Imam Ahmad, they're saying it is not allowed. However, the late Hanabila, and one narration from Madhab Imam Ahmad, the Madhab of Imam Malik, and one of the saying of Imam Shafi'i, they're saying it is allowed for her to read the Quran if she wanted. And adding into that, it is the recommendation. They mentioned the scholars scenarios, especially if she was a Quran teacher, if she was a person who memorized the Quran, wants to revise it, if a person is teaching the Quran and she knows that by heart, she wants to teach the other. So there are situations where you're going to, and adding into that, if her period goes into the maximum number of days, which is 15 days in the Hanafi school, so it means that you are going to ban the lady of not reading the Quran for 15 days. 15 days, that is nearly half of the month, isn't it? That's a long period. And in the same, on the other hand, you recommend the person to read the Quran, and Rasulullah said, Al-Baytul, the heart which does not read Quran is like Al-Baytul Kharib, and we recommended to read Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran, the three Quls, and the Ayat Al-Kursi, and the last two verses from Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Mulk when the lady sleeps, and all of these recommendation. So that is, add that in your consideration. Plus, we don't have clear evidence, clear and authentic evidence bans the lady of reading the Quran. The Hanafi school and the other scholars, one narration from the Hanabil, as we said, and one statement from the Shafi'is, they narrated the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar, لا تقرأوا الحائض, the ha'id, the lady on menses, should not read the Quran, uh, nothing from the Quran. So she should not. The lady who is a ha'id, لا تقرأ الحائض ولا الجنب شيئا من القرآن. So this narration, the scholars, they explained it as from memory. So the haid should not read anything from the Quran while in the state of haid. And so they said the hadith is very clear and proving the point that they mentioned. While the late Hanabila and the other team of the scholars, as we mentioned earlier, they said the hadith first is not authentic. The hadith is weak, and you cannot attribute to that to Rasulullah. Secondly, if the hadith was authentic, then we understand this hadith that by reading the Quran directly from the Mus'haf, touching the Mus'haf, not by memory. Okay. Also, the scholars who said it's not allowed, they said we exclude from the band, we exclude what can be read as an adhkar in the day and in the evening. So meaning here, as if they're saying we exclude the reading of Ayat al-Kursi, we exclude the reading of the three Quls because you need to read them in the morning and in the evening, the reading of Surah Al-Fatiha, the reading of Surah Al-Mulk because you read it before you sleep, and so on. They said all of that are excluded from here. So they said anything was read as an adhkar, as a dhikr, or as a dua, then it is fine. It is allowed to do that. Well, the answer for this, where is the evidence to, if you're saying the hadith is an evidence for that, so why you are excluding this? Where is the evidence? It is a debate. However, in my opinion, what I believe and what is allowed in my view, that it is allowed. No, sorry, this is a second masala. Yes, it is allowed for the lady to read the Quran from her memory. If she memorized the Quran, if she knows the Quran from her memory, she can read that Quran even if the state of the menses. Now we'll come to the third point. The third point is, what about reading the Quran from the mobile phone, from the phone which is now facilities there and the whole mushaf is in there? What about doing that? Well, the scholars who said it is not allowed for the female to read the Quran while in the state of the menses, whether you read from memory, whether you read from from the mobile, from your phone, both of them are included in here. However, I believe it is not mushaf, and our scholars from the Maliki madhab and the Hanabila, they stated very clear, a lady when reads the Quran from, who on her menses, yeah, reading Quran from a tafsir book, a translation book, a Quran translation there, or any other books, Islamic books, but there are verses in there. This book is not a mushaf. What we refer to in the ayah, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, referring into the mushaf. And what is referring to that hadith as well, if the hadith was authentic, but we said the hadith is not authentic, we're referring also to the mushaf. However, the tafsir is not mushaf, it's a tafsir. And the book of translation, Taqiyuddin Muhsin Khan, the translation of the Quran, that is a translation, that's in English. And or in other books, Islamic books, they're Islamic books, a fiqh book, the hadith book is not tafsir, it's not Quran. So therefore, it is allowed for the lady. So the conclusion of this issue, Dr. Andalib, I believe that you are allowed to read Quran even if the person, I know you're asking for somebody else, if the person was on the state, the lady was in the state of the menses, she's allowed to read Quran in the states if she reads the Quran from her memory, or if she reads the Quran from the phone. Okay, so that is the second question. The following question I have here. Okay, so is Brother Thaqi, I think if I read the name correctly, Brother Thaqi, and his question is, how do you perform istikhara prayer? So the question is about the istikhara, salatul istikhara, or the istikhara prayer. How should the istikhara performed, and how can a Muslim do the istikhara? First, let us talk about just some points about istikhara. The istikhara, or salatul istikhara, it is one of the prayers known in Islam. The ahadith which reported and mentioned the istikhara are very clear and known in Islam, and that's in Bukhari and Muslim and other books of Sunan. Rasulullah sallam recommended the Muslims to pray the istikhara. And what is istikhara? Al-istikhara, the word istikhara is a verb and noun, comes from istakhara yastakhir. And it's talab al-ikhtiyar. Talab al-ikhtiyar, you're seeking the choice. Meaning here, you're seeking Allah to help you to get the right choice, or the right decision. That is what it means, the istikhara, because we say istikhara, possibly maybe some of us, we don't know that. So that is the istikhara. When should we as a Muslim pray the istikhara? We have two situations. The first situation, when you are cannot you cannot make a decision between two options. You have two options and you cannot make a decision. Which one shall I buy. You have, let's say, you decided to buy a house, and one house is in Pinner and the other house is in Northwood, and you are not sure. Of course, before all of that, our scholars they recommended that for the Muslim, even before starting the istikhara, you consult. You try to find out consultation, to go and consult the right people, and then after that you make your own istikhara. So you consulted the right person, the right people, and then now you came to the istikhara. So you cannot decide. Both of them are they have an advantages and disadvantages. You can't really make sure which one you're going to go to. Or you want to buy a car where you're not really sure. Shall I buy the BMW or shall I buy this Mercedes? You don't know which one. You make istikhara. That's one situation. The other situation, when you are not sure to go ahead to do something. So you have one thing to do it, something mubah there. Shall I do it now or shall not? So that is the when we should do and pray the istikhara. The very important point that people they make mistake in it, and very often I receive questions about it, that some of our brothers, they and sisters, maybe possibly sometimes, they did not, let's say, did not do one of the pillars of Islam, one of the wajibat. Let's say, I'll give an example, Hajj. A person has enough money and the person is healthy. The person has the time and no issue to hold him back to go for Hajj. And he says, oh, I'm going to make istikhara. And there's no Hajj was performed before. So this is the first Hajj, which is the Hajj al-Fard for him, the obligation Hajj for him or her. And the person goes and makes the istikhara. That is not the place to make istikhara on. Istikhara cannot be made on wajibat. Obligations, you don't make istikhara on it. You have to make it. You have no choice. When you're asking Allah to guide you to get the right choice, and that's why I started with definition of istikhara. You don't do that with wajibat, with obligations, with arkan, and the pillars. You can't do that. Also, you don't do that with muharramat, the prohibited matters. You don't do or actions. You don't do istikhara. Shall I do it? Shall not? Let me make istikhara. Really, I'll do the less worse. You don't do that. Istikhara will not be. It's not permissible. Istikhara is not a ibadah, an act of worship to do it when you are in a haram thing. So you don't do that. Also, our ulama, the from the madahib, they mentioned the istikhara, it's not also allowed to do it with makruhat. You should avoid makruhat. You should not do istikhara in that. So what is left for us? We have arkan. We said arkan, you're not allowed to do istikhara in there. We said wajiba, I'm trying to use what is in the Hanafi school, the arkan, the pillars, the fara'id, you're not allowed to do istikhara on there. We have the wajibat, the obligations, you're not allowed to do istikhara on there. We have muharramat, you're not allowed to do istikhara on there. We have the makruhat, also they said you should not do istikhara on the makruhat. So what is left for us? We have the mubah and we have the mandub. We have the mubah and the mandub. Mubah is the permissible. They said, let's go to mandubat. Al-mandubat is sunnah. So the ulama also mentioned that we should not really, if you think about what Islam is, what Islam is inviting you to, even the mandub, you should not make istikhara. Mandub, the Sharia recommended you to pray Salat al-Duha. You get up in the morning, now Ramadan, you get up in the morning, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. For those who are not, we work from home, so Mike, you work late. Before going to your PC straight away, your laptop, you're recommended to pray Salatul Duha. So it's good to pray Salat al-Duha. Salat al-Duha is a sunnah. It's mandub. You can say, I'm going to make Salat istikhara. Shall I pray Salat Duha or not? No, you don't. Because mandub is recommended to do it. So what is left for us is the mubah. You do istikhara in the mubahat only. Something mubah, yes. Maybe possibly with the mandubat, when you have two mandubs in there, you need to make a choice. Which mandub shall I make? In here, possibly, yes, you make istikhara because you have a limited time with that. Okay, so that is what is the ruling of Salatul Istikhara? The Salatul Istikhara, it is a sunnah with an agreement of all the scholars. There's no, as far as the four madhab concerned, that there is no one from the four schools who mention that Salatul Istikhara is wajibah, or an obligation. Now, how the salah should be performed and what should we read in there. Salatul Istikhara, 2 rakat. Salatul Istikhara, it's not required to make one specific individual salah. You can include the intention of the istikhara with your sunnah ratiba. You prayed salatul dhuhr, and after dhuhr you pray 2 rakat. You can, in these 2 rakat of the sunnah of the dhuhr, you have the intention of praying 2 rakat sunnah of the dhuhr. At the same time, you intend in the salatul istikhara to make after that the istikhara. So other than the fard, you exclude the fard, which is Fajr 2 rak'at, Dhuhr 4 rak'at, Asr 4 rak'at, Maghrib 3 rak'at, Isha 4 rak'at. You exclude that. Other than that, any other nafil, you pray it, and you include the niyyah in there. You pray, you're going to do istikhara as well, because the istikhara is a dua that you do it after performing rak'atain, a 2 rak'at. Okay, and the 2 rakat can be any other 2 rakat, but not the fard. As Rasulullah mentioned that in the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu, and that is in Bukhari and Muslim. He said Rasulullah used to teach us the istikhara in our matters, in all of our matters, the mandub, the mubah matters, not the other matters of the wajibat or the muharramat. So when he says in all our matters, the mubahat only, the permissible matters only. As I gave earlier the example, he said in the same way how he used to teach us, or how he teaches us the surah from the Quran, meaning step by step, and he encourages us to do that. And he said, the Prophet said, as in the narration of Jabir, he said, إِذَا هَمَّ أَحَدُكُمْ بِأَمْرٍ. Here, it means that if someone intend to do a matter, hamma, when you have that, possibly you go into the level of also azima, when you having the idea, clicks in your mind, you want to buy a house, whether pina or there, let me make istikhara. Okay, or azama. So al-azm, that's a little bit higher level, that just the beginning of the idea when it comes to the mind. So al-ham here, which mentioned in the hadith, إِذَا هَمَّ أَحَدُكُمْ, was explained by the scholars, whether it is the first thought when it comes to your mind, or it can be with the al-azm. Why I'm saying this too, because the result of that, that's what, well, I'll mention that, I'll link that with our result later on. So with that, you have to be careful. So you have the azima, you decided to do a mubah matter, then you pray your salat al-istikhara, the istikhara prayer, and you pray after. So in here, you don't need to say anything. There is no intention to say it, and you only pray it if it was in a permissible time. Do not pray istikhara in the Muharram time between Asr and Maghrib, or after praying Fajr until the sun rises up. So, the times of the not allowed to pray the Nafil Salah, we don't pray Salatul Istikhara in there. Only one situation allowed to do it during that time, if the time was one of this forbidden time, was one of the makruh time, and you need to make a decision now. You need to make a decision now. I can't really delay it. I have to make a decision now. So in this case, the scholars allowed it. They gave an excuse. It is permissible for this case to do istikhara. Okay, then you pray 2 rakat, normal salah, normal prayer. If you are going to pray, as we said earlier, either any normal nafil salah, the ratiba salah that you pray in your daily salah, or let us say now you are initiating, you are making just 2 rakat. That's fine. That's you can do that, of course. You're praying 2 rakat, normal 2 rakat, normal salah, takbir, thana, surah al-Fatiha. Now the short surah, here we have views between the scholars. Some scholars are saying you read surah, you read قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ and قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. First rak'ah قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ, the second rak'ah after surah al-Fatiha قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Okay, we said to them, where is the evidence? They said, well, Rasulullah used to pray that after Maghrib, the Sunnah, or also after Fajr, sorry, the Sunnah of the Fajr. And they said because Surah Al-Kafirun and Surah Al-Ikhlas, it consists a lot of sincerity and a link with Allah. And that is what you need, the istikhara. You need to have that strong link to make yourself pure, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you able to decide which one that you're going to go to. Another view from the scholars, some scholars suggested to read a specific ayat. They mention like وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. So the ayat that when if Allah decided a decision, you believers, you have no choice to go into that. You don't. We said to them, where is the evidence? They said, well, because the ayah gives that meaning that you have no choice when Allah makes for you the choice. And that's what you do with Salat Istikhara. Okay, well, we said Rasul Sallam, the third view, they said there is no specific surah other than Surah Al-Fatiha, and you choose any surah you like to read it, any short surah to read. This is the correct opinion. Why? Because the Hadith Jabir, when he said Rasulullah taught us exactly how to pray Salatul Istikhara, and he showed us in the same way how he teaches us the Quran, then if Rasulullah wanted us to read a specific surah, he could have told us in the hadith. He gave the hadith, the whole that long dua. He taught us that dua. If you want to do it, do it with that dua. So he should have also mentioned us the surah as well. So in my opinion, you don't need to read any this specific verse that we mentioned them. You have the choice. You read whatever you want to read after Surah Al-Fatiha. You complete first rak'ah, second rak'ah, you complete all your salah. So when should I make my dua? The dua that Rasulullah recommended, and he mentioned it in the hadith of Jabir. The opinion of the majority of the jurors from all the madhahib, the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, and Hanbali, they mention this dua should be after taslim. After saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, then you raise your hand. You can raise your hand if you want, and you can say it without raising the hand, because raising the hand, we have that in the other hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not return your hand. Sifr means without an answer. So you can do that, is a mustahab. And if you say it without raising the hand, also fine, because the hadith of Salatul Istikhara, he did not mention that raising the hand. So you can have it with raising the hand or without that. You read that dua. And the other view, it is the view of late Hanabila, and they said you read the dua of the istikhara after completing all your tashahhud, tahiyatu lillah wa tayyibat wa salawat, and then you read the durood, the salat al-ibrahimiyya, which is durood ibrahimi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, and then you finish your salah. You before about to finish your salah, just salam left for you, then you read that dua. Well, this is the evidence. This is what the late Hanabila mentioned. And what is their evidence? Is their understanding from the hadith, because the hadith says, he said, صلي ركعتين غير الفريضة, pray 2 rak'at other than the farida, other than the obligation, ثم, and then say, then he mentioned to him the dua. So with that, they said, and we know this, the dua in salah is better than the dua after salah. So because of, and they mentioned also Rasulullah made 4 different types of dua at the end of the salah before salam. And we ask Allah to protect us from fitnat al-Masih al-Dajjal, or fitnat al-Mahya, or fitnat al-Mamat, and adhab al-Qabr, and all of that before ending our salah before salam. So he said also recommended to do it in there. So there is a point, I would say is fine, although I would go to the view of the majority of scholars more stronger after salah. But however, if you do it before salah, there's no problem, because it's a dua, and the dua will be accepted, and it's absolutely fine. However, if you want to do, if you did not memorize the dua, and you want to read from a book or you read from a piece of paper, then it will be recommended and better for you to do it after salah. Of course, if you memorize, it will be better, so you'll have strong khushu and strong attention to what you are saying. And if not, then you read from a paper. If you want to do that, will be then better to do it after salah. Wallahu alam. So this is, I think, a journey through the Salatul Istikhara. And yes, one mas'ala left from Salatul Istikhara, and that is now the result. The result, what shall I? Some, they say, you wait after you make the Istikhara and see what your heart, what your nafs is telling you. This, it was said by a number of jurists, a number of fuqaha, scholars, but this, it will be in one case. The case when your heart is not connected already with one particular thing that you wanted. And so you didn't have, as he said at the beginning of the hadith, فَإِذَا هَمَّ أَحَدُكُمْ, you didn't have the azima, you did not reach the level of the azima. It means that you are really, really want that thing. Then in this case, maybe, yes, you go and you wait. See your heart, you're really happy with it, then do it. But what I believe and what I feel, it is more practical in our life, the Muslim's life. When we do istikhara, we have something in our mind. Now, I really, really like BMW. I want to buy a BMW car. However, someone, after consultation, someone said to me, better for you to buy that car. Okay. A different car, Mercedes car, as we said earlier. Now, in this case, my heart is telling me this. And the friend is telling me, the person consult telling me something different. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told me, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah recommended for us to have a mashwara, to ask others when you don't know. Now, in this case, I would say, go ahead with what you decided, what your heart is telling you to do. And if Allah, because that's what we have in the hadith, إن كان فيه خيرا لي لديني ودنياي فيسره لي. So if it was good for me and my معاش وفي معاشي, then make it easy for me. وقدره لي ويسره لي. So make it مقدر for me and make it easy for me. However, if it was not good for me, and then فلا تقدروا لي. So makes that, don't make it from my taqdeer, and you're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to move it away from you. And that is what it means in here. So what I'm saying, you go ahead with what you really intend to do. And when you see some issues here and there, you wanted to go to the showroom to buy the BMW, and then you slept, you didn't wake up. So that's a sign. You went there, they said to you, or they canceled the meeting, they said to you, please come next week or tomorrow. That's another sign. Or you want to take the bus, and then you went to the station and the bus was late, or something like that. Something comes up, it's from taqdeerullah, and that's Allah making all this taqdeer in front of you. So don't go ahead with that. In my advice, you should avoid it. Okay, that is the following question, and we went through like kind of a journey with the istikhara. If we have time, we can go to the following question. Do we have time?
Yes, Sheikh, we've got about 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay, I have the last question then. Is the last question? Yes, the last question, inshallah. My last question came from Sister Sophia Islam, and she's asking, and some other brothers as well, asking, which is the common and common question comes from Ramadan, and in this situation as well, can the musalli, the Muslim read the Salat al-Taraweeh while the person holding the phone, reading Quran from the phone, or reading Quran from a mushaf? So basically, you didn't memorize the Quran, you don't know enough, you want to make khatm al-Quran, and you want to hold your mushaf, or you hold the phone and to read from there your khatm, your taraweeh. Well, in this, again, we're going to come into the ikhtilaf of the fuqaha. We have I trying to go with try to make it a little bit clearer. So when I come to my decision at the end, I think I will make the audience and the person who asks, I think, aware of this choice that I'm making it. I'm choosing it for her or for them. Okay, so we have the Hanafi school or the Hanaf jurists. They said it is not allowed for the Muslim to hold the Mus'haf. In the issue, the ulama, they talk about it in the fard salah and in the nafil salah. See, the obligation salah and the nafil salah. I'm not going to go now talk about the fard salah because not really our issue. Let's talk about the nafil salah, which is salat al-tarawih, one of the nafil types, one of the voluntary salah. They said it is not allowed for the Muslim, whether he was hafiz, not hafiz, whether it was Ramadan, not Ramadan, whether it was Qiyamul Layl, not Qiyamul Layl, any voluntary salah, you're not allowed to hold the Mus'haf and to read from there. This is the view of the Hanafi school, and it was supported strongly by the Zahiriya as well. Imam Ibn Hazm, for those who know Imam Ibn Hazm. And the Imam Abu Hanifa, or the Hanafi school, they said the reason for that, because of the movement that the person will be making. So if I'm praying, I will be holding the Mus'haf like that. This is a Mus'haf. This is a normal Mus'haf. So I'll be holding a Mus'haf like that. And then you're closing it, or you put a marker, in there, and you put it down, and then you go for ruku, and then go for sujood, and so on. If you're having the phone in the same thing as well, you put it in your pocket, or you put it in the side. So because of this movement, they said, and the movement in the salah, if it was not from the nature of the salah, then that movement in the Hanafi school will invalidate the salah. Okay, so that is first evidence. And they said also, in their opinion, they said, as if when you're reading from a Mus'haf, as if someone is teaching you. So as a muallim, as a teacher in front of you, and you're reading from him, so as if having talqeen. And we know that talqeen and the talk in salah is not allowed. Okay, so now let us now look into this evidence, two evidence, and then we'll go to the other views and what are their evidence in this issue. The Hanafi school, when you mention about the movement in salah, we say yes, we agree with you. The movement in salah, if it was not out of necessity, that movement is not required. However, to invalidate the salah, that is a strong decision. And that decision needs to have a very clear evidence. And this evidence is absent. We don't have it. And in fact, we have some other evidence that when Rasulullah moved from his salah and he allowed the person to enter his home, as in the hadith Aisha radiallahu anha. And also we have Rasulullah when his grandchildren, they used to jump on his back while he's praying. So there is a little bit of movement in there. He will be looking after them. He will delay his salah. He will slowly allow them to sit down. And this is kind of movement. And these movement are not from the nature of the salah. The meaning of nature of the salah, so you're moving from ruku', moving from sujood. This is a movement required. It's from the nature of the salah. It's required. You have to do them. Because not all the movement is not allowed. So the Hanafi, they say this is fine with that. So this is our response to the first evidence. The second evidence, or let's call it ta'leel, a reason. This is like someone teaching you. We say, well, this is not a teaching because the other person is not talking for you to listen to and respond to him. And from there, you are looking, and from looking, you're reading. That's all. So this qiyas, this analogy, not that strong. Okay. Ibn Hazm, he mentioned also that the practice of the Salaf was not on that. And also Ibn Hazm mentioned that it is this decision, I was saying Salah is batil or not valid. It is the view of some of the scholars from the Tabi'een. Okay, well, with that, it's not an evidence to say some of the Tabi'een says that. Let us now go to the other view. The other view, it is a view of the Hanabila, the view of, although like Ibn Hazm and others, they quote Ash-Shafi'iyya as amongst the schools who says it's not allowed. But Imam al-Nawawi, and he's one of the great of the Shafi'is, he says the madhab allows that. So possibly in the Shafi'i school there are two views. However, the view that Imam Imam al-Nawawi, and he also Imam al-Nawawi, he said, he made a point. He said, if a person does not know Surah Al-Fatiha, a person doesn't know Surah Al-Fatiha, what would you say to this person? This person will say to him, okay, you are able to read, then hold the Mus'haf and read from the Mus'haf. So he making this point as if, as a ta'leel, as a reason that makes you think, okay, then if you allow him to read Surah Al-Fatiha from the Mus'haf, then he's allowed to read in his rest of the Salah. So it's fine. Holding the concept of holding the Mus'haf, it should be fine. So they said it is allowed. So who are there? We said the Hanabila, and we said it is the Shafi'iyya, or at least one view in the Shafi'i madhab, and also the view of Al-Malikiyya. They said it is allowed. So really, the view of the majority of the scholars, you allowed for the Muslim to hold the Mus'haf in Salat al-Taraweeh and in the Nafil Salah. I'm talking about the Nafil. As I said, the issue goes also into the Fard Salah. In the Nafil Salah, you hold the Mus'haf in Salat al-Taraweeh and you read from there. What is the evidence? The evidence is al-Mu'mineen, Aisha radiallahu anha, the Prophet ﷺ's wife. She, during Ramadan, she used to tell her mawla, her slave, she used to tell him, Dhakwan, his name is Dhakwan, used to tell him to lead the Salah, and he was a person who was able to read, but he was not a hafiz. So he used to read from the Mus'haf. And this, if it was an action of Dhakwan himself, the Mawla of Aisha, then we'll say maybe okay. But Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to tell him to lead the Salah, and Aisha used to pray behind him, and he used to hold the Mus'haf and used to read. And Aisha herself, she memorized the Quran. And this evidence, this hadith, Hadith Aisha radiallahu anha, was reported by Imam al-Bukhari in his Sahih as ta'liq, mu'allaq, without a chain. But majzoom bihi, he mentioned there as confirming is an authentic chain. It was narrated by Ibn Abi Shayba in his Musannaf. It was narrated by Abu Bakr ibn al-Athram. It was narrated by Imam al-Bayhaqi in his Sunan al-Kubra. That's a Shafi'i, to show you that is allowed in the Shafi'i madhab. It was narrated by a number of scholars, and the story is authentic, and it shows very clearly that you are allowed to pray behind, or to hold the Mus'haf while you're praying. So the Salah of Dhakwan, his prayer is valid, and the prayer of Aisha behind him is valid as well. So that's one point. And as well, earlier we refuted the evidence of the other school. I will add into that as well. The Salatul Nafil, Salat Qiyam al-Layl, it is a voluntary Salah. The Sharia recommended and encouraged us to pray as much as we can of the Nafil. And the Nafil Salah will be Yawm al-Qiyamah, good for the person who will be covering the missing part from the Fard Salah. And in the Nafil Salah, we found from the views of the scholars, or from the Hadith of Rasulullah, they have a little bit of ease in Salat and Nafil, unlike Salatul Fard. For example, in the hadith, was narrated by Anas ibn Malik, report by Anas and Imran ibn Husayn and others, in Sahih al-Bukhari and others, said, Salatul Qa'idi ala nisfi min Salatul Qa'im. It means the reward of the person who's praying sitting will be half of the reward of the person who's praying standing. Of course, if you don't have if you're praying without an excuse, if you're praying with an excuse sitting, then your reward will be full. This ruling is for Salatul Nafil, not Salatul Fard. Salatul Fard, all the ulama, we agreed that the standing up for the Salah, al-Qiyam, as called al-Qiyam, it is one of the obligations of the Salah, one of the arkan of the Salah. So now this was made ease for the Salatul Nafil, is unlike the Salatul Fard. That's one. Secondly, also in the traveling salah when people are praying the nafil, as Anas ibn Malik himself, the one who narrated the previous hadith, he used to pray while he was on his camel in Al-Basra, when he's leaving Al-Basra, and he used to live in Al-Basra. And when they asked him, why are you doing that? He said, by Allah, I saw Rasulullah doing that. That's another ease was in salat and nafil as well, the voluntary salah. Also, we had, and our ulama, when they're saying, when putting the right hand on top of the left hand on the salah, which is the al-qabd, the scholars, I know in the Hanafi school, they put the place of putting the hands will be under the navel, but the other scholars, or like the Shafi'is and the Hanbalis, who says the qabd will be on the middle here, on the sadr, and the sadr, all this area, we had that from our shuyukh who explained that. They're saying in Salatul Qiyam, in Salatul, the voluntary Salah, when you pray Qiyamul Layl, because it's a longer Salah and you stand, you're allowed to lower your hand, because to make it easy for your shoulder, you're all the time holding like this or like this, you lower your hand and make it down. That's to make it a little easy to continue with your nafil. Adding into that, also, we have the fatwa from the tabi'een and from the scholars, the fuqaha, they're saying in the Salatul Nafil, also in Qiyamul Layl, you're allowed to lean on a wall, and for the sake of to continue your Qiyamul Layl. Some of the Salaf used to have a rope from top and holding on that to continue Qiyamul Layl. All these things and movement and to make it easy for Qiyamul Layl to do Qiyamul Layl. Now you have a Muslim who's in Ramadan, who is able to read from the Mus'haf, but he's not Hafiz. If I follow the Hanafi school, saying your salah is invalid and you're not allowed to do that, it means that I'm not going to make any Qiyam Layl at all. It's either read Quran or not Qiyamul Layl. But I really love to make Qiyamul Layl. I want to talk, I want to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the salah, of course, better than reading the Quran alone. Why? Because the salah has salah actions and it has reading the Quran, both. But reading the Quran is alone, reading the Quran only without salah. So in this case, you said the salah is better. So this is the story of reading, holding the Mus'haf while you're praying Salat al-Taraweeh. What is my view? My opinion, it is allowed in my view with no doubt. I really recommend my sisters and my brothers to hold their Mus'haf if they have a Mus'haf, or to hold the phone. And you need to be careful. Have a table next to them, put it on the side and read. Of course, if you know Quran, read what you know, will be better. And if not, then read that and use your khatim, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from you, from us, and from everyone. And I think these are all the questions that we received them. I'm not sure about the time. I think we came to the end of the time as well.
Yeah,
so
Sheikh, we had a few questions on the chat, but inshallah we'll answer those next Tuesday's Q&A.
Okay, yeah, if the questions are related to what I said, I would recommend that if you want to know my view, so then you need to wait for the Tuesday after next. Okay. Otherwise, if it was the questions are general questions, so inshallah then Imam Abid next Tuesday will answer your questions, my brothers and sisters. And this is the end of the session. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. May Allah accept our siyam, our reading Quran, our qiyam, and keep you safe, all of you, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.